Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Adam Roa, and I am here today with Jay Shetty, who is a Forbes 30 under 30 list maker this year. Congratulations. You made the list for 2017. Your videos have gone so viral. You've reached now over 1 billion people. And one of the sayings that you have that I really like is about making wisdom go viral and just helping to spread wisdom. And so I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this summit and spread that wisdom to this audience. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. I'm a huge fan of uplifting content as well. I love what you guys are doing in that space. And I'm so happy that you're acting as such a hub and such a space that you're actually helping so many other change makers and influencers come together. So I think what you've built is phenomenal. All credit to you and Ione.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's much more Ione than me. And also I think it's what you touched on is really important, creating a hub, because I believe deep down that human beings are good. Like they will choose good if given the choice. And so a lot of times it's just simply a lack of information. And so making it easily accessible for people to find people like you who are spreading these positive messages and ways of looking at the world, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, there's a great quote that I love from Martin Luther King where he said that those who love peace should learn to organize themselves as well as those who love war. And therefore, I love the way you've been able to organize, create these platforms, bring people together, because I think that if we want to help the world and we really want to touch people, we need to get organized. We need to have these spaces where we can come together, these hubs that can energize and activate people. So yeah, I'm on the same page.
Yeah, and before we started recording, you said something that's sticking in my head because it rhymes so well, which is you can't be what you can't see. Yeah. And so what you do and what uplifting content does is provide awareness of what's possible. And so I'd love to know from you a little bit about why that's become such a focal point of your life, to make that your mission, to spread this wisdom.
I think it's because, first of all, you've got to be touched by something. And a lot of people message me today and they'll be like, Jay, we love the way you communicate a message, or we really resonated with that. And the funny thing is, I grew up as a really shy kid. I hated being on stage. I hated holding the microphone. I am a total introvert, and I wasn't confident to talk about anything in that way. My first experience of public speaking was standing on a stage when I was something like 7 to 8 years old, and I forgot my lines and I began crying, and I had to have my teacher come up on stage, hold me and carry me off stage while I was crying, and my friends laughed at me, right? And when I think back to that experience, I realized that the reason why I love sharing wisdom so much now is because I found something that I really believe in, something that's really meaningful to talk about. And I often describe it as, if we suddenly, one of us, me or you or someone who's listening or watching, spotted the cure for like a really bad disease in the world, or someone spotted the cure or solution to solving a really big problem, we'd want to tell everyone about it. Like, you wouldn't keep that secret. You wouldn't hold on to that. You wouldn't hide it from the world. And I think wisdom is that. Like, the challenges that people have with mental health today, the challenges we have with depression, the challenges that we have in our personal relationships and lives, wisdom is the antidote. Wisdom is the solution. And if we plant wisdom deep enough into our hearts, you'll see these beautiful trees and flowers grow from within us. So for me, it's, I've been touched by something. And when I've been touched by something, I want to give it away to everyone. And it's as simple as when you've just seen a great movie, or you've just heard the best new song and you want to tell all your friends, or the next series on Netflix. That's what you do. You want to tell everyone. So that's the space I'm in. I've been deeply touched and I want to deeply share.
Amazing. And that's a different mentality, I feel like, because a lot of people I've seen, and myself included, when I was first growing up, there was this scarcity mindset around like, ooh, like I figured out these secrets and I need to keep them to myself in order to get ahead in some way, shape, or form. And moving from a mindset of competition into collaboration has been a big part of my own journey. Has that always been the case for you, that you just wanted to share all those secrets? Or, because I know you were on the track to want to be super, super successful at a young age.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I grew up, I think my early days and my teens, I was always like that. I wanted to be equal with people. I never wanted to compete. I used to hate it when someone thought I was better than them or they were better than. I used to love equality. I've just always loved equality. But then I started to notice when I was reading some business books or hearing advice, you know, there were the two top rules, like never tell anyone everything you know. And the second rule is follow rule number one, right? And you start hearing these things. And I started to get intrigued whether that was the way. But I was very fortunate that the role models that I saw that were successful, they were people who didn't hide. They were people who freely gave and were still financially, materially, emotionally successful people. And I think that's where people like yourself, that's where all of us who are trying to work together come in, that if people can see that you can give, you can serve, you can freely help people and assist people and still be successful, that's the kind of success that I think we're all redefining together.
Beautiful. And so what have you seen in your own life going from a monk from like 22 to 26 and within 3 years of that experience, essentially having reached 1 billion people and being as successful, if not more successful than you actually dreamed of at a young age, and doing it in such a short period of time? Where was that shift for you? What was the mindset that you took out of that monk experience?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just super humbling. I'm super grateful. It's overwhelming. Like the response that the videos have received were never part of the plan, or there was no strategy, or it wasn't like, oh, this is going to happen. So I'm extremely touched and grateful to everyone to this day that watches, likes, and shares a video, because I'm just genuinely humbled by it. It's incredible. But what I learned from having been a monk was that you learn to realize to not idolize or demonize anything. And I love this principle, that everything is inherently empty and we give it meaning. So social media has negative connotations. Media itself has negative connotations. But as a monk, the viewpoint you're trained in is that you don't idolize or demonize anything, whether it's money, fame, exposure, but you learn how to utilize it for a higher purpose. And that's really what I was trying to do with my technology, understanding my videos, was how could you said it earlier, making wisdom go viral. I was like, how can I spread wisdom at the pace people want entertainment? That's been my vision since day one. How do I make people recognize that wisdom can be dynamic? It can be entertaining. It can uplift you. It can blow your mind, and it can live in your life like a lyric of a song, right? It doesn't have to disappear. And the transition from a monk was very much, as a monk, you're very insular and you don't necessarily broadcast yourself. So I had to get over my own challenges of what it meant to broadcast myself. Like, monks don't promote themselves. And I had to really go through that internal battle where I was like, okay, do I believe in serving people more, or am I actually going to let my reverse ego stop me from expressing myself? And I came to the conclusion that even if I had to take the risk of going out there and promoting myself or broadcasting what I believed in, if that was going to help people at the core, then I had to connect with that constantly. So what I do is daily, I refine my intention. If I ever feel that my intention starts to become about money or fame or any of the stuff that I didn't value as a monk, I bring myself back to my monk values and go, actually, I value service. Actually, I value helping people, and I value creating impact so that millions or billions or whatever it is, people across the world can change and transform their own lives. So it's constantly refining why I'm doing this. And I think that when you become successful or things start to work, it's very easy to get lost.
And so when you're talking about refining the intention, because this is something that I'll discuss regularly in my workshops or with my clients, is like, whenever you're stuck on what to do or how to do it, revert back to why you do it.
Yes.
And when you can come back to the why, it will many times become very clear what the action steps to take from that are. And that ties into this, like, what keeps you uplifted theme.
Yes.
Because for myself, I've noticed that in order for me to really connect to my why, it's important for me to be in like my high state, because that's generally when I've been connected to my purpose, is in this highest state. So for you, with as much as I imagine you to have on your plate, all the different wheels that are spinning currently, how do you stay in that high vibrational alignment with your purpose and your intention?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great question. So it's more about the how I stay close to my why, correct? That's the question.
Yeah, I guess I get questions a lot. Be like, well, what should I do? Should I do this, or should I do this, or should I do this? And it's like, well, why do you do it?
Yes. Yeah, so it's super interesting. So I was actually handed Start With Why when I was a monk by one of the monks that I lived with, the book by Simon Sinek. And it's incredible because I read it, I loved it, I fell in love with the concept. And even though he talks more about leadership and corporates in that book, I started to apply it to my own life. And the great thing was last year I got to interview him and tell him this story, which was awesome. And I've loved that concept of starting with why. I'm totally with you, and I totally connect with what you're saying. For me, I remember like plotting. Whenever I have to make a decision, I plot every potential option I have, and I write down the why behind why I would choose that option. And often the why will be, oh, this is going to feel good for my ego with this decision. Oh, this is going to feel good for this. It's going to be good for what people think of me. This is going to be good because it makes lots of money. And as soon as I write love as the why underneath an answer, I know that that's the one I should go for. Because if I'm doing it purely for the fact that I love doing it and that I'm connected to it from a deeper point of love and a deeper point of meaning and purpose, then I feel connected. So I try and avoid the other intentions. Another way I do it is, I think people have this idea that finding a high vibration is something that just stays and it doesn't go away. But I just want to throw it out there that there is nothing sustainable. Like the word balance and sustainable are actually so misleading sometimes, because it's hard to have a plateau of a high vibration. You're either expanding or you're going down. It's very rare to have this. And I think people forget that. I was speaking at a university in Maastricht earlier this year in Europe, and I was giving this example that when you're alive, your lifeline does this, right? It's full of ups and downs. And when you die, your lifeline does this. So similar to how life is, like this is life. It's ups and downs. You're going to have times when you're high vibration. You're going to have times when you have low vibration. But all you have to do is pick yourself back up. Whereas if you expect this, you're basically dead, right? And I think that's the problem. So what I do to stay in that high vibration is I spend time with people who vibrate on this level. And when I'm talking about this level, I'm not even talking about people that we know about through social media. I'm talking about people that people will never hear about. So whether it's monks, sages, saints, people who've deeply immersed and absorbed themselves in these activities and texts and reading and study for decades, they're the people, in my opinion, who are vibrating at a higher level than I potentially ever will. So you're always raising your game. So I spend a lot of time with the monks that I used to live with. I spend a lot of time with people who may not be in the mainstream media, who may not be known by newspapers, who will never have a New York Times bestseller. But these people live really powerful lives on a daily basis where their habits are totally immersed in spiritual vibrations or deeper activities or higher activities. The second thing I do is I spend a lot of time. Oh, sorry. Do you want to interject that? I don't want to go on.
No, you're on a roll. You're on a roll. Flow. Yeah. I'll remember it.
Yeah, and then the other one I think is creating daily routines or daily habits that allow you to create your own vibration. So that's almost like what I call borrowed vibration or shadow vibration. It's like if you spend time with someone who's really charismatic, you end up copying their body language. And that runs out. You can't be that person. So when you spend time with these people who vibrate on a high level, they raise your game, but you're actually living off their vibration. So you have to learn to accept that, receive it, and keep it and create it for yourself. And that's where your daily habits and routines come in. Because if you don't receive that well, it just kind of slips through your fingers and you lose it all. And that's what I find, that when we're with people who have high vibrations, we lose things very quickly. So creating a daily ritual, sacred space, habit, whatever you want to call it, life hack, whatever it is, whatever name you give it, but creating something for yourself daily that helps you reconnect with what you've experienced in places and people that are at that higher vibration. And we can unwrap this more, but I don't want to go.
No, I'm curious because one of the things that you're touching upon is a lot of the people, and I think what you said was, are vibrating at a level that you may never even reach, right? And these are people who are not necessarily in the public eye, who don't have the desire to be even public. Maybe they are monks who are more insular, like you were saying. So I guess my question is, that implies something in my head. Maybe I'm projecting that out as, wow, maybe it's harder to reach that vibratory state when you're so out, and instead of being insular and going internal. One, do you believe that? And two, how do you adjust? Because now you are so public, and even this is even a personal question, because as my own brand grows, it's like, how do I adjust to that same level of raising my vibration insularly, right? While being very connected, having social media platforms, having websites and all these things coming at you?
Yeah. Great question. Really, really good question. And I think it's all about what I was speaking about earlier, those two words. It's absorption and addiction. It's like, are you sitting there trying to figure out what the next quote is for social media? Or are you working on yourself and the quote is coming from you working on yourself? And so I use Twitter as like my scrapbook of thoughts. And I rarely think my quotes through, but I will literally be thinking of something while I'm walking. And I'll be thinking, okay, this is what I've been reflecting on in my life. This is what I need to work on. And I'll try and articulate it as a quote so that I can remember it. And what I'll do is I'll just share it on Twitter because I want someone else to connect and see if they connect too. But I'm not thinking outside in, I'm thinking inside out. And I think that as a creator, that is a provider of wisdom or a channel or facilitator of wisdom has to always be the case. That you're working on your inner world first, and that's inspiring your outer world, rather than you thinking, oh, what video theme is going to do really well this month? And you have to stop yourself from that thought process, because you've got to go with what you're channeling and what you're dealing with inside first, and then connect that to how that serves. So I think that's a big thing for me that I do, that I'm trying to daily express and share my personal dilemmas, challenges, thought processes. And so I'm living through my work rather than my work is a marketing piece for what I'm thinking. And I think that you have to constantly, like I was saying, that constant refining. It's like you water a plant every day. The Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas give such a beautiful analogy of exactly this challenge that people go through. When you're growing a plant and you start watering it, when you water it, you grow the plant, like the seed sprouts and you see a stem go through, but at the same time, weeds start to grow. And the ancient Vedas explain that often the challenge is we start mistaking the weed for the plant. So you start watering the weed. The weed is all your negative emotions, your negative aspirations, your focus on the things that you know are not really the fulfilling pieces. And the plant almost suddenly starts to get wrapped around by this weed, and you lose yourself in that process. So daily we have to pull out those weeds and water the root of the plant. And so you've got to be aware and conscious. This is a weed, this is the plant, and this is what I'm watering, and this is what I'm not watering.
That reminds me so much of the Native American saying of the two wolves.
Yes.
Right? Where you have the two wolves, and one is those negative feelings of anger and jealousy. And then you have the other wolf, which is your joy and your love. And the little girl says, well, grandfather, which wolf will win? And he says, whichever one you feed.
Yes, exactly. I love it. Yeah, definitely. And exactly that point, that what are you feeding, right? And how aware are you of what you're feeding? And for a creator, for someone who's responsible for people connecting with your content daily, we have the biggest responsibility to constantly be going through that process ourselves. Because otherwise you end up misled and you mislead others.
And that's the thing that people are drawn to as well, and is sustainable, because I notice this fear of, what if I run out of good ideas? It's like, wait, if you're a human being and your ideas are coming out of who you are being, then that process, those ideas will never run short, because you are continually evolving. And so I love that you're pointing that out. And I guess my next question is, how consciously do you fit this inner work into your daily schedule? for the people who are listening who are like, yeah, but he's this famous guy and I have the 9 to 5 and I have a family to feed. And like, how consciously are you building it into your schedule?
So I'd say that, and this is good context actually. So obviously I went to business school and I started building this into part of my life since I was 18. So this is just over 10 years ago now. So since 18, I've been trying to build this as a conscious piece of my life that everything else functions around. So while I was studying, while I was doing internships, while I was doing everything else that an 18-year-old does, I was still trying to find this as my core source of inspiration and energy. I then went on to live as a monk where I completely immersed in this space. And so that part I get, you're not doing that. So fine, I get that I got to live that in my life and that was incredible. And then when I left being a monk, which was around 4 years ago, I went back into the corporate world to learn about digital innovation and strategy. And I built my life around this as my core practice. And I've spoken to countless celebrities, countless influencers, countless people out there who've all said to me that their practice, their daily space is what everything else revolves around. I interviewed Tim Ferriss last year, and he was saying in his book, Tools of Titans, that the number one habit of the healthy, wealthy, and wise, 80 to 90% of the 200 people he interviewed who are healthy, wealthy, and wise, all meditate in the morning. And so for me, your daily activities, whether you're famous or not famous, whatever you see yourself as, this becomes where everything grows from. And you have to have that faith, you have to have that confidence that this added piece of investment is going to help me. And I'll give you an example. We all make time to eat, we all make time to sleep, because we believe when we eat better and when we sleep better, we work better. And your daily ritual that you add to your life doesn't work any differently to sleeping or eating.
I think that there's a key word that you just said right there, which is investment. Yeah. And noticing when people will say, oh, I don't have time to meditate, oftentimes they're looking at that as a sunk cost.
Yes.
This as opposed to an investment. And so if you take that time in the morning to meditate or stretch or read a book or whatever it is, that's an investment into that day, into that week, into your life. And what caused you to get that mentality at 18?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think you've just drawn a great thought out, that I think a big challenge to that is the education system, because we don't talk about investments. Mm-hmm. Like no one talks about investment. We talk about getting things done and then doing the next thing. Mm-hmm. Rarely in life do you invest in something that fructifies later and then watch that pattern and go, oh yeah, I know why this happened, because we look for instant response. Investment means it's not instant. And
you want that cause and effect, that immediate cause and effect. That's how our brains seem to be trained.
Exactly. Whereas an investor thinks 10, 20, 30 years. How did I get that at 18? I saw people who had invested in deeper practices who I believed were more fulfilled, living meaningful lives, more purposeful lives, and were successful. I think it's all about role models. If you are aspiring to study the lives of the people you look up to and you look at how they live their lives from day one, not where they are today, but where they were when they were your age, I guarantee you they invested in these things. So that at 18, it wasn't like I was special or I had an epiphany or I had this mind-blowing idea. It was, I saw people who did it. Like I saw people. The second thing is I saw people and then I tested it myself. I experimented with it. So I made a simple experiment. Let's try this out for 7 days, right? Let's give it a go for 7 days, 10, 20 minutes, whatever it is a day that you're willing to commit to, and then test that experiment. Focus that experiment as where you're really learning from it. And you're thinking, okay, in life, in these 7 days, all I want to learn is this habit useful? I think the problem we do is we're like, I'm going to meditate for the rest of the year, or I'm going to meditate for a whole month, or like, I'm going to do this forever. Like, I'm going to sign up for a gym membership for 12 months. And it's like, yeah, or like, I'm going to read this book in a week. And it's like, we put this pressure on ourselves, but we don't just get to appreciate and engage with the actual activity.
Yeah, one of the biggest shifts in my own life happened when I realized that there's no finish line.
Yes. Yeah.
When it's like, it doesn't matter how fast I read that book, because I'm a huge analyzer, and I have this part of my brain that loves to break things down. I'm like, well, the sooner I read the book, the sooner I can use that information, and then the further ahead I'll get wherever that is. And that recognition that there actually is no finish line. So it doesn't matter how fast, how much information you have, you're still going to be in process.
Yes.
And that is takes a lot of the pressure off, I feel, of getting things done and needing them to be so extreme. Like for the rest of the year, I'm going to be meditating an hour a day or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that comes from living in a result-orientated society. Everything is measured by results, immediate results, instant results, what's happening right now. And I think that's useful for certain parts of life, for sure. Like we all have bills to pay. We have to get stuff done right now. But I do think there are parts of our life that require that investment to fructify later. And we have to, if anyone looks up to, I guarantee in their life, they've invested in some way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with that. And so when you say the parts of our lives now, I'm curious for you, what's the balance between your business savvy, let's say, and knowing that, a video that I release online should be under a certain length to keep people's attention, or like whatever those business strategies are, combined with just full, authentic, like what comes through you. How do you blend that and walk that line of those two seemingly different worlds, but you know?
Yeah, great question. I think that's been the long-term challenge of purists or spiritualists. And it's like, how do you reach people if you don't understand how to use tools? And if you don't understand the techniques that work? And I think there's a fine line between techniques to move, motivate, and support, and techniques to manipulate. And I, again, think that that's a reflection process that you have to go through. So I would say that when I'm writing content or creating content, it all genuinely comes from real conversations, real challenges, real messages that people have sent through to me on Facebook and said, Jay, can you make a video on this? Or I'm really struggling with this. So I'll often sit there and read messages. Even if I don't get to respond to everyone, I'll read messages from people and go, okay, there's a few things here that are really standing out. Like people are really struggling with this, or people are really struggling with this. How can I create content to serve that audience? So that's where I'm going from a genuine, authentic point of view. It's like, this is what people are really struggling with. Then when it comes to getting the link in the right place, or naming things correctly, or sharing a concept that we know is going to grab people's attention, I don't see that as negative. I see it as a way of reaching more people. So I look at that and go, I need to understand tools. I need to understand techniques. I'll tell you why. Because if the world is spreading negativity with tools and techniques, we need to spread positivity with tools and techniques. You can't catch up with a world you don't understand. And I think people forget that they expect spirituality or positive things to just go viral just because they're so positive. And we both know that that's not the case, right? I know some people who put out really heartfelt content that doesn't go anywhere. And so I think what uplifting content is doing in a great way is helping people with a message get out to a wider audience because they understand the tools. So I would say that today's world, we need both. We need to be genuine, constantly work on that, but we need to know the business savvy tools. We need to know the techniques and use them to move and motivate people and not manipulate people. And I think that's where the trust will change, that people are trusting uplifting messages. They want to connect with that. And we are now responsible for people's trust and to not misuse or manipulate. So I feel if you're using tools and techniques to move and motivate, it's great. If you're using them to misdirect or manipulate, watch yourself, because that's going to come back in its own way.
And that's that constant reflection process of what's my intention for this? What's my intention for this?
Exactly.
And to even be able to answer that question honestly seems to require a foundational level of just self-reflection.
Yes.
An ability to develop that relationship with yourself deep enough where you can sit there and say, what's my intention? And have that inner dialogue come through.
Yeah, completely. No, completely agree with you. I'm a big fan of inner dialogues and creating inner dialogues. And I tried a lot as a monk to rewire my inner dialogue to the dialogue of the Vedic literatures and the books that I was reading, 5,000 years plus old from India, where they originate from, and even Socrates, Plato, and Stoicism, etc., which has been a big influence in my life. to really rewire my internal dialogue to the dialogue of the people who lived meaningful, purposeful, and service-led lives. And I think the more we connect with those messages, the more we read them, the more we absorb them, we need to start creating that dialogue so that we can notice and observe the part of ourselves, or well, not even ourselves, but the part of our subtle and physical selves that we don't appreciate, and then substitute them for something we do. And it's just being able to spot that trigger, and that requires practice, coaching. You know, like you were saying, you're coaching people. It's like, we need that. We need people who are able to take mentors. Like mentoring has become something that's kind of resurfacing as a thing we should do. But it's been there since like thousands and thousands of years. Mentoring existed, but we kind of took it out because this mentality came, I can do it myself.
That's an interesting thought, because you had like almost like philosophical apprenticeships back in the day, where it's like, wow, I want to study, even with you know, the disciples and that sort of thing. You had people who literally were like, I want to learn from this person and then go off and write my own text and write my own way of viewing the world. And so in your own life, because this is now becoming, as is often the case, right? Like life coaching, that like industry and mentorship, there's a huge boom in desire for it, which is also leading to people who may just know the tools and may not be the purest intention as far as just helping people themselves. It's more the manipulation you were talking about. For you, seeing this booming industry, do you seek out mentorship? Do you seek out coaching? Do you seek out maybe certain masterminds and workshops? Like, what does your development look like within that realm?
Yeah, so I'm always seeking out mentors and guides who have 10 plus years experience than I do, people who are ahead on the same journey, ahead on a different journey. But I always select them based on like the number one trait that I admire in someone and that I aspire for is humility. So when I see a super successful person who has humility, that's what touches the core of my heart. And that's what earns my respect. And that's also what, so I can be sitting next to or in front of a multi-billionaire, and I have done that. And when that person has expressed humility, I'm like, oh my God, you're like incredible, right? Because when someone's achieved something, but doesn't see that as them being above you, they don't see that as being be all and end all, that's the most endearing quality, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's the endearing quality for everyone.
Right.
For me, I've always chosen mentors not based on the tools and techniques, but based on their overall ethos and based on their overall way of guiding, because I feel that this person will never misguide me because they're self-reflective, and B, they will never be misguided themselves, which could land me in trouble in the long run. And I think people forget that if you follow someone who has gone down a path that you don't trust, it's only a matter of time before you may end up in the same situation. And even if you didn't end up in that situation, it's very unlikely to be fulfilled having been that kind of character in life on a deeper basis. So I try and seek out mentors that have humility as a number one trait that I look at. I try and seek out mentors who've done what I've done and what I observe in a genuine and authentic way, but also understand the tools. So I'll always try to find extremes of mentors. I'll find like extreme, genuine humility, person who just totally gets that. But then I want to find the extreme of talent, skill, and ability and take that from them. So learning to become someone who can find positive things anywhere and then using them for a higher purpose. So there are people out there who are so much more skilled than all of us. And if I don't know them, I'm not anyone to judge their motive. And that I stay very clear on, that if I don't know someone one-on-one, I'm not going to judge what their motive is based on a video on social media or judge them based on a video on an ad campaign or whatever it is, because I've never sat with the person one-to-one.
Right.
If I don't know you one-to-one, I have no right to judge you. And so I don't, but I do know that I can learn from anyone and use things for a higher purpose.
And that's that's something I'm sitting with right now in my own life, which is this idea of open-mindedness, right? And this morning I was journaling, and because that's part of my morning practice is either to read or journal or both. And one of those things that came through was nothing will close a mind down faster than the need to be right.
Yes.
And so
nice. I like
this need to be right and the desire to like feel safe in the world somehow by being like, oh yeah, I totally understand how this whole thing works, actually closes us down to an opposing viewpoint. And that opposing viewpoint could be the very thing that helps like click that thing into place. And you may get that from a mentor or a coach, and you may get that from the homeless person that at the stoplight, right? And just that openness is, when you say humility, my biggest thing that I look for in mentorship is open-mindedness.
Yeah.
And I think that what I've found in life is a lot of times the things we value most or even struggle with and like aspire to be come from the wounding when we were young that we see in ourselves, right? So like I was so closed-minded and needed to prove that I was right as a kid. So now like one of my biggest aspirations and who I look up to are people who are fully open-minded to new ideas.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I couldn't agree more. I love it.
There you go.
No, it's true. It's true. I think that if you limit yourself from learning from, and it's easy. So there's a few layers of this, and let's kind of unravel it and unpackage it a bit. And there's people struggle with complete open-mindedness because it's like, oh my God, if I listen to everyone, what do I do? And people fall into that trap of like, I'm talking to too many people and they're all giving me different advice and I don't know who to follow. And so it's almost like building groups of counsel who are experts in different fields to get different types of wisdom. Like you can't go to the same person you learn meditation for relationships. They may not be an expert in relationships just because they're an expert in meditation. And I think that's the challenge we have, that we look for the one who has the answer to everything, when actually in life, you'll find that there's rarely one person who has everything answered and everything covered. And so it's building groups of counsel around the different areas. So it's totally in line with open-mindedness. It's just helping people kind of package that for themselves in their lives.
Which is interesting because there's like this biological predisposition to want a leader.
Yes.
Right? Like even when they did the thing with, I don't know if it's monkeys or gorillas or whatever, where they gave them the option of food or to watch the video of the alpha male, they were watching the video of the alpha male. It's like predisposed in our biology to want leadership and to look to leadership. And that, what you're saying, where it's like, actually leadership may look like 7 people in leadership in different ways. There's this part of ourselves that we get to almost override our biology a little bit of wanting that one person to solve it all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's my advice for the world. Like when you get into deeper realms of meditation or you start connecting with, whatever you want to call it, but there's no human being that can facilitate every area of our life. There's different people who will help us in different areas. And I think as teachers or as guides or as friends online, like I always just see myself as the friend of the person who follows and watches what I do. And it's like, as a friend, I never want to put myself across as I know everything about everything. This is what I know about. This is what I'm sharing. And this may drop in a few areas, but I'm now not going to suddenly teach you how to make a 7-figure salary, right?
Yeah. And are you open to the idea that everything that you currently believe, like tomorrow, could be completely different?
100%. Yeah. I think, 100%. I think we're always growing and evolving. I don't think you can ever say, I know enough, or that's it. I've learned a lot now.
Yeah. That was a big shift for me is having some of those experiences where everything I thought I knew, I didn't align with anymore. It's like, once that's happened 1 or 2 times, you can't really grow too attached to what you think you know.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many challenges in the world, because people are too attached to what they think they know and they're not open to what they don't know. And it's just, I think if you're not open to what you don't know, or you assume that your form, like it's the same as like when people even talk about a concept of meditation, there are so many different types of meditation out there, right? Mm-hmm. And until you know that, you kind of think that your meditation is like the only way to meditate. Mm-hmm. And understanding the hierarchy, understand how things work. There's so much to be learned.
Awesome. And so last question I have for you. I see all the books behind you.
Yeah.
And so you even had more books that you pulled out of from wherever to help load up the height of the laptop.
Yeah.
And so it's clear to me that you're an avid reader. And I would love to know which have been along your journey, which have been the books that people maybe who are listening to this, who are being inspired to start investing in themselves in this way. What are some books that you're like, these go to these?
Okay, I'm gonna do it from here because I can see them. So this book right here, oh, maybe you can't see it, but I can't pull it out, I can't reach enough. But Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's written for organizations, but apply it to your own life. What we were talking about, the what, the why, and the how. I mean, I don't think a book articulates it more simply than Start With Why. And I always tell people to start with that book. And it's a modern book. It's easy to read. It's well written. It doesn't require much research. You know, to me, it's been a life-changing book personally, and therefore I can't not recommend it. These aren't in any order, by the way. These are just books that are mine. One of the other books that I think has had the deepest impact on me is the Bhagavad Gita. And that's because so much of what I read today is in the Bhagavad Gita with so much more depth. So I see a quote and I'm like, oh my God, I read that. That book's 5,000 years old. And it's just this phenomenal compilation of a conversation between a divine personality and a warrior. And the warrior, it's a historic conversation, but the warrior represents us in so many ways. Someone who wants to be successful, someone who wants to learn, someone who wants to grow, someone who values development, but is in a point in life where they're confused, lost, and asking questions. And the Bhagavad Gita is this phenomenal conversation where so many questions about sacrifice, success, anxiety, stress, pressure are answered, but completely through ancient wisdom. And there's a great book by Martin Luther King, a great quote by Martin Luther King where he said that if you want a new idea, read an old book. And I'm a huge advocate of that statement because in my opinion, I've rarely found anything that's really new. And that's why Steve Jobs said that creativity is just connecting things. And when you ask someone creative how they did that, Steve Jobs said they'd feel like a thief because they only connected two old things. And so for me, the Bhagavad Gita is like, if you're really into diving into deep philosophy, wisdom, understanding yourself, purifying yourself, going to another level, that's a huge book. And the third one, I'm actually going to go with something that I think is a bit more modern day, because I like sharing those three books because one's ancient philosophy and wisdom, one is like modern day self-development. And this is more for that tools and techniques conversation because I think it's so important for us who are trying to spread positivity to know is a book called Exponential Organizations. It's published by the Singularity University. It's incredible because it analyzes how modern day businesses like the Airbnbs of the world, etc., were able to scale so much faster than traditional businesses. And it really breaks down their ethos and their business model and how they leverage the sharing economy. So if you're someone who's watching going, Jay, I get what you're talking about, but I want to know about the tools and techniques, then I recommend this book because it's written from a business point of view. And I think that every change maker and influencer should have a combination of those three things. Their life should be underpinned by deep service and wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita. They should know what their why is for modern day self-development, and they should know how to put it into practice. And for me, those three books kind of give you that trifecta effect of giving you each part of the puzzle. And I don't think you can truly live a fulfilled, successful, or service-led life without each one of those three. So some people are like, oh, I just need the business book. And I'm like, well, you probably make a lot of money, but then you may end up feeling lost or depressed, or you won't know what to do with your money. And you may say, oh, I just want the wisdom. And it's like, yeah, but if you just have the wisdom, then you won't serve the world. And then if you just if you just have your why, you won't know how to put it into practice and you don't know how to make it sustainable. So for me, that's the three.
Awesome.
And I do love reading. I read a book a day in 2016.
Really?
I devised a technique mixed with speed reading and books, which helps me read a book in 2 hours. So I don't believe that books have to be read cover to cover. And I don't think every book should be read cover to cover. So there's a technique that I came up with that I've shared it before on a Facebook Live, but I'll probably do it again, where I share how I read a book in 2 hours and realize whether I want to read the book in totality or not. And it helps me get beyond the finish line method that you were talking about.
Yeah.
so many people are like, oh, I can't read that book until I finish this book. And I'm like, no, just read both and figure out which one you actually want to read.
Yeah.
Because you may spend a month reading a book and then go, oh, well, I didn't learn anything from that. So I read a book in 2 hours and make my mind up whether I want to read the rest of it. And yeah, so I love reading. I'm a big advocate of reading and experimenting. So read and then experiment and test what you're reading. Don't just learn it. Like, don't let it sit here.
Awesome. And that is why over 1 billion people resonate with your message, because like 1, 2, 3, the whole trifecta, like you're covering it all because you're living it all. And that's really inspiring. It's always a pleasure. I interviewed Kyle Cease for this summit, and getting a chance to talk to Kyle, you get a sense of people who are at this level of popularity or fame or whatever you want to call it, who are still very much deeply in the work themselves. And you just put that out into the world, and I'm really appreciative of that and of the time you've taken for this summit. Why don't you let people know how they can follow you and what you got going on?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and I'm humbled by that, and definitely in no way do I think I'm famous or in any way, but I'm very grateful for that. And I think you can follow me on Facebook. I'm Jay Shetty IW on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram and Snapchat. I'm Shetty J, which is my name backwards on both of them. And I'm on YouTube as well. You can subscribe to my channel. But whichever one you're tuned into me on, just, leave comments. I try and reply to as many as I can. When I reply to comment, it's actually me. I try and read up on video ideas, the concepts. I'm about to launch an awesome school online in September, so stay tuned in for that. And I hope many, many people will join, because I don't believe change is a weekend, and that's why I love this summit. It's not a one-off. It's not just a one day. It's not a 1 hour. Like, change is every day. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to create programs where people can tune in with me regularly every week, daily, to bring change into their lives. So if you want to be led for change daily through the stuff I'm talking about, please definitely join in with that, because I really want to help people.
Oh no, Jay.
Yeah. Ooh.
I just lost. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I got you. It cut out for just a second. I was like, at the very end.
No, that's fine. Yeah. No, I was just saying that I'm really trying to, so this was part of my reflection. I was like, I can either just share loads of content and that's great, or I can actually sit and guide people through structures and strategies and thinking and do it in a way where people can connect with each other. And part of my genuine internal self-awareness led me to want to do this. So that offering is going to kick off in September, and I'm excited to launch it. But yeah, I'm so grateful to you, Ione Uplifting Content, for reaching out to do this. I loved it, and I hope you're going to do a lot more of it. And I remain an avid ambassador of uplifting content, and excited to carry on working with you both. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everything that you're doing in the world. I'm sure the people who are listening to this are as motivated as me in this moment to be like, oh yeah, I want to start investing even more in myself, even if it's 10 minutes a day. You know, Tony Robbins says, if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life, right? And even if it's just 10 minutes where you wake up 10 minutes earlier, or you go to bed 10 minutes later so that you can meditate or read or whatever that is, I encourage you to do that. And if you've listened to this interview, you're already on that path. You're already doing it. And Uplifting Content thanks you very much for being a part of this summit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
And have a great day, everybody.